Imagine standing under the Egyptian sun at midday. The air is dry. The sand reflects the light. Stone walls feel hot to the touch. There is no fan, no refrigerator, no air conditioning, no cold bottle of water waiting nearby. And yet, people lived here for thousands of years. They farmed, built temples, raised families, traded goods, made art, worshipped gods, and created one of the most famous civilizations in history. So how did ancient Egyptians survive the desert heat? The answer is not one secret trick. It was an entire lifestyle. Ancient Egyptians survived because they learned how to work with the heat instead of fighting it every moment. They adapted their homes, clothing, food, schedules, tools, and cities to the world around them. The first and most important reason Egypt could survive was the Nile. Without the Nile, ancient Egypt as we know it would not have existed. The country was surrounded by desert, but the river created a long green corridor of life. It provided water for drinking, farming, animals, washing, transportation, and trade. The Nile also helped moderate daily life. People could live near its banks, grow crops in the fertile floodplain, and use canals and basins to manage water. The river was more than a water source. It was Egypt's cooling system, food system, highway, and lifeline. In a desert climate, water is not just useful, it is civilization. But even with the Nile, the heat was still intense. So Egyptians built homes that helped manage temperature. Most ordinary houses were made from mud brick. Mud brick might sound simple, but it was well suited to the climate. Thick mud brick walls absorb heat slowly. During the day, they help keep the inside cooler than the outside. At night, when the desert air cools, the walls release stored heat. This creates a more stable indoor temperature. Homes often had small windows. That reduced direct sunlight. Less sunlight meant less heat entering the house. Many houses also used flat roofs. At night, people could sleep on rooftops where the air was cooler and breezes were easier to catch. In hot climates, the roof was not wasted space. It could become a sleeping area, a work area, or a place to dry food and materials. Courtyards were also important. A shaded courtyard allowed air to move through the home while keeping people out of direct sun. Shade was one of the most valuable forms of cooling. Ancient Egyptians understood this deeply. They used walls, awnings, reed mats, trees, and architectural layouts to create shaded areas. If you cannot cool the whole environment, you create islands of shade. That simple idea shaped daily life. Clothing was another major adaptation. Ancient Egyptians often wore linen. Linen is made from flax, a plant that grew in Egypt. It is light, breathable, and better suited to heat than heavy fabrics. Many garments were loose-fitting. Loose clothing allows air to move around the body. It also protects skin from direct sunlight while avoiding the trapped heat of tighter clothing. White or light-colored linen helped reflect sunlight. This made it practical as well as symbolic. Wealthier Egyptians might wear finer linen, jewelry, wigs, and cosmetics, but the basic principle remained. In the heat, fabric needed to breathe. People also protected their heads. Workers, travelers, and farmers could use cloth coverings, simple headwear, or shade from baskets and tools. The head and neck are vulnerable under strong sun. Even a simple covering could make a difference during long outdoor work. Ancient Egyptians also used oils, perfumes, and cosmetics. Some cosmetics had cultural, religious, and beauty meaning, but they could also play practical roles. Eye makeup, for example, may have helped reduce glare and offered some protection around the eyes. Oils could help protect skin from dryness in a harsh climate. In the desert, the body is always negotiating with sun, dust, and dry air. Daily schedules mattered too. People did not treat every hour of the day the same way. The hottest part of the day was dangerous and exhausting. Outdoor labor was often easier in the morning and later afternoon. Farmers, builders, and workers likely adjusted tasks around heat when possible. This did not mean life stopped at midday for everyone. Ancient societies still demanded hard labor, but timing was a survival tool. Do the heaviest work when the sun is lower. Use shade when the sun is strongest. Rest when the body needs protection. This rhythm is common in hot climates because it works. Food and drink also help. Egyptians ate bread, vegetables, fruits, fish, onions, garlic, dates, and other foods depending on class and region. Many of these foods were practical in a hot environment. Fruits and vegetables contain water. Grains provide energy. Salt and minerals could be important for people sweating during physical work. Beer was a common drink in ancient Egypt. It was not always like modern strong beer. It could be thick, nutritious, and safer than some contaminated water sources. For many people, beer provided calories and hydration as part of daily life. Water storage was another key. Clay jars were widely used. Porous clay containers can allow slight evaporation through the surface. As water evaporates, it can cool the remaining liquid inside. This is the same basic principle behind evaporative cooling. In a dry climate, evaporation can be powerful. A simple clay jar placed in shade could keep water cooler than the surrounding air. That is not modern refrigeration. But in desert heat, even a modest cooling effect matters. The Egyptians also used the environment intelligently. They understood wind, they understood shade, they understood the difference between riverbank, field, desert edge, and city street. The desert can be brutal during the day, but cooler at night. So night and early morning were valuable. Travel could be planned around cooler hours. Rooftops could become sleeping spaces. Animals could be moved when conditions were safer. Markets and social life could shift with the day's heat. Egyptian architecture at larger scales also reflected heat awareness. Temples and elite buildings used massive stone, high ceilings, columns, and shaded interior spaces. Thick stone could create cooler chambers. Courtyards and colonnades provided shade and controlled movement through light and shadow. These spaces were not air-conditioned, but they were designed with climate in mind. Even the feeling of walking from blazing sun into a shaded stone hall would have been powerful. The temperature drops, the glare fades, sound changes, the body relaxes. In a hot land, architecture could create relief, but survival was not the same for everyone. A wealthy official had more shade, better clothing, servants, stored goods, and access to comfortable spaces. A farmer or laborer faced much harsher conditions. People working in fields, quarries, or building sites had to endure intense sun. Their survival depended on physical endurance, water access, group organization, and local knowledge. So when we talk about how ancient Egyptians survived the heat, we should remember that survival was unequal. The rich could escape heat more easily. The poor had to work through it. Still, Egyptians developed systems that allowed society as a whole to function. Irrigation supported agriculture. Granaries stored food. Settlements clustered near water. Materials like mud brick and linen fit the climate. Cultural routines followed the sun. Technologies remained simple but effective. The desert was not just an enemy, it also protected Egypt. The surrounding deserts made invasion more difficult from certain directions. They supplied minerals, stone, and trade routes. They shaped religion, travel, and imagination. Egyptians lived between two worlds, the green world of the Nile and the dry world of the desert. Their civilization grew from managing that contrast. The Nile meant life. The desert meant danger, mystery, and protection. Heat was part of this balance. It shaped what people wore, where they slept, how they built, when they worked, what they carried, how they stored water, how they valued shade. Ancient Egyptians survived because they paid attention. They knew that a wall could block sun, a roof could catch wind, a jar could cool water, a linen garment could breathe, a tree could save strength, a river could feed millions. That kind of knowledge is easy to underestimate because it looks simple. But simple does not mean primitive. It means tested, repeated, passed down, improved over generations. There is a quiet intelligence in desert living. You do not defeat the sun. You learn its schedule. You do not ignore thirst. You build life around water. You do not waste shade. You create it, protect it, and share it. That was the genius of ancient Egypt. Not just pyramids and temples, not just pharaohs and gold, but the everyday ability to survive in a land where the sun could punish every mistake. When we picture ancient Egypt, we often imagine monuments, but behind every monument were people managing heat. A worker drinking from a clay jar, a family sleeping on a roof, a farmer beginning before sunrise, a child resting in shade, a craftsperson working inside thick mud brick walls, a boat moving along the Nile while the desert burned on both sides. That is how Egypt survived, not by escaping the desert, but by building a civilization around its rules. Ancient Egyptians understood something modern people often forget. Comfort is not always about controlling nature completely. Sometimes it is about listening closely enough to live with it. And in the heat of the desert, that wisdom was the difference between suffering and survival.